This is the reflections lesson. So we start with reflecting this figure over the y-axis. So I click on this tool that shows the y-axis with the reflection. And we're going to put the reflection line right here on the y-axis. I'm not sure why they make you place that, but there you go. And then what you have to do is you have to put the point, that point from the original, you have to put that ordered pair. And in this case, it is -7 for the x value and -2 for the y value. And then the point in the final figure, remember this is our pre-image, the original is also called the pre-image, and the new one is the copy, the image, or the final. And so that ordered pair is +7 for the x value and still -2 for the y value. I'm going to show you this from the very beginning. When you are flipping over the y-axis, reflecting over the y-axis, the ordered pairs, the numbers themselves, not their signs, but the numbers themselves are the exact same numbers. Can you see that? I don't know if you can see the difference, but the only difference is that when you're flipping over, reflecting over the y-axis, you keep the y's the same. You change the sign of the x, whatever it was. If it was negative, it becomes positive. If it's positive, it becomes negative. The reason is, if you look at this, the shapes are still down below 0 using off the y-axis. Off the x-axis, they're below. You can see that point and that point are both at -2 on the y-axis, but the x has changed. The x was over here, and now the x is over here. So I did the opposite sign of the x. So you keep whatever your y was if you're going over the y-axis, and you change the sign of the number in the ordered pair for the x. That is it. That's all you do. All right, so the next one. Try to get this. Okay, so I'm going to go to number 2. There's only 2 that you have to do this like this. And number 2 is now going to be jumping over the x-axis, reflecting over the x-axis. So I'm going to pick this tool, and I'm going to go ahead and place it right on the x-axis. I dropped it. I just tapped my pad and it dropped it. And now I put the 2 ordered pairs. So in the original figure, I go 2 to the right, and then I go 4 up. So that's the ordered pair for that point. And then I want you to think about this. The numbers are still the same. I'm not even going to look at this. The numbers are still the same. It's still 2 and 4, okay? But if I'm jumping, if I'm reflecting, I like to say jump with my kids. When I jump over the x-axis, reflect over the x-axis, you keep the x, but you change the y. You change the second number. So that's the x and that's the y. 2 is the x in both, and y is the y. 4 is the y in both. So in the final figure, it's no longer positive, but it's -4. So if whatever you're reflecting over, whichever axis, you keep that number. The x stays the same if you're going over the x-axis. You change the y, you flip the y to its opposite sign. Or if you're jumping over the y-axis, reflecting over the y-axis, you keep the y and change the x's sign. All right, so that's that. Moving on. For number 3, okay, we'll practice this. Exactly what I just said. When you reflect over the x-axis, they're still both the same numbers. I'm still going to use 5 and 8, but signs might change. Well, signs will change for one of the values. If I'm jumping over the x, I keep the x, and I change the opposite of -8 which is change the sign to its opposite, which is positive 8. Now when I'm going over the y-axis, I keep the y. So I'm going to go ahead and put in negative 8 so I don't mess it up. I keep the y and I change the 5 to negative 5. Okay? So whatever you're jumping over, whatever axis you're reflecting over, the x in the ordered pair stays the same if you're jumping over the x-axis. If you're reflecting over the y-axis, you keep the y the same and change the x value. There's an x and a y in every ordered pair, okay? All right. Okay. This one, you know, for these, you just gotta keep your focus, that's all. I'm going over the x-axis, so I'm gonna keep the x. I'm gonna go ahead, whatever I'm keeping, I'm gonna type in first so I don't make a mistake. That means my second number, the y, has to change to its opposite. So negative 7 becomes 7, okay? Jumping over the y-axis, I keep the y, and then I change the x to its opposite. Negative 3 becomes positive 3. I mean, once you get the hang of this, it's easy. You just have to remember what you're doing. Okay. So this says reflect 7,4 across the x-axis. I'm assuming, okay, I don't see, all right, I don't see any graph on this. I guess there is no graph. I'm gonna look. Let's see, that's number 5. No, all right, this is all you get. There's no graph you have to worry about. So if I'm gonna reflect this ordered pair over the x-axis, then reflect it across the y-axis, that's why. Okay, so I'm gonna just do it this way. So I've got 7, 4. And it says to reflect that over the x-axis. If I do it over the x-axis, I keep the x and I change the 4 to negative 4. You change the y. Then take this answer and do, sorry. So I'm going to say that's the first thing you do. And now the second thing you do is take the answer that you have and reflect it over the y-axis. So for that, if you're going over the y-axis, you keep the negative 4 and you change the x. Okay, so for the final, what's the final point? So I reflected it twice. Think about this. I have a shape and I'm going to go over the x-axis and now I'm going to reflect it over the y-axis. Okay, so my final is this. After reflecting it over the x-axis and then the y-axis, I end up at negative 7 and then negative 4. Okay, so we're probably going to be reflecting twice for a couple of these. This time I'm going to go over the y-axis. Okay, so I'm going to take negative 8, and I can go in, negative 8 and negative 8, the ordered pair negative 8, negative 9. Going over the y-axis, you keep the negative 9 and you flip the negative 8 to its opposite, which is 8. Then you take this answer, so that was number 1. The second time you change, you're going to reflect this point over the x-axis, so I keep the x. Change the negative 9 to positive 9, and now my answer is 8 and 9. Okay, number 7. Okay, so now we're going to draw the reflection of the triangle across the x-axis using my pencil and my line tool. All right, so this is easy. Whatever if you're 1 below, and we're going over the x-axis, x, so I'm going to go over this axis right here. So if I'm 1 down, I'm going to be 1 up, drop my point. This is 5 down, so from here I'm going to go 5 up. This point is 4 down, so it's going to be 4 up. And I'm using this numbers over here be my guide, and I'm just staying wherever that line is, I just go straight up. See, it kind of creates a line for me here. So I just follow that, and then I'm looking at my y-axis, and I know I gotta go 4 up because I was 4 below. All right, and then I take my line tool and just create your lines, your line segments, I should say. Okay, so there you go, and there you go. There, that's it. Can you tell? It looks like a perfect reflection over the x-axis. All right, number 8. Okay, same thing. Now let's see which axis we're going over. The y-axis, okay? So this time I'm not gonna go over the x this way. I'm gonna go this way. It's gonna end up over here. So if I'm 2 to the left, I'm 2 to the right. See, this little line really helps guide you. All right, this one is at 7 on the left, -7, so it's gonna be +7 on the right. And then the last one, you do 1 point at a time. It's like you're lifting it and moving it, and then you drop it. This one is at -4. Remember, I'm not tapping my pencil tool yet, my pad. I'm at -4, so I'll be at +4. Now I drop it. Then I connect with the line tool. Line segment, there's one. And you gotta do it to all 3 points. If you have a 4-sided shape, you do 4 sides. If you only have 2 lines, you do the 2 lines. Anything that they show you, you just take each point, lift it, and move it. And there you go. That's a perfect reflection over the y-axis. Biggest problem kids make. It says the y-axis, and then their brain says, oh, I'm going down. Nope, you just messed up because that's the x-axis, not the y. This is the y. That's what you gotta remember. And it's always listed. There's the y-axis, it has a little y, and there's a little x. So that's the last thing you can always check to see if you've matched up with the correct axis. Okay, number 9. Okay. Now, this is a triangle. How do I know? Because there's 3 points, and 3 points all connected is a triangle. All I'm gonna do is, these are all prime symbols, so this is my copy. This is where my copy is going to be. These are the order pairs for if I do my image or my copy of the final shape. Well, here's the original points here. All I have to do is, once again, at x, the original is -2, 6, all right? And it's reflecting over the x-axis. So every single one of these, the x is going to be in the y order pair. The x doesn't change, the y is its opposite. So I go to my x prime, that's -2, keep the -2. Change the 6, the y, to -6, because in here, oops, what did I do? Let me do this. This 6 becomes -6. Okay, I'll do it this way. The y prime, keep the x. If I'm going over the x-axis, reflect over the x-axis, I keep the x and change the y. Okay, and this becomes -11. Okay, and then z, keep the x, which is 10, and then change the -5 for the y to +5. And that's it. That's all I want. Okay, number 10. And I understand that they have, I guess I could do, no, I'm not even gonna do this tools. I'm just gonna type inside the blue boxes. I think that's a lot easier. Okay, in this shape, it's just a triangle. If it were 4 points, it'd be a rectangle of some sort. Not just necessarily a rectangle, just a 4-sided shape, I should say, because it could be a trapezoid. Okay, so here it is. We're reflecting over the y-axis. This time you change all your x's, you keep all your y's. So I'll go ahead and I'm just going to start from left to right this time. If x is -11, if I'm going over the y-axis, then it becomes +11. And then keep the y, which is -10. So So we're doing something different because we're reflecting over the other axis. When you're going over the y-axis, you keep the y and change the x. So all of my x's are going to be the opposites of what they are in the original. The original is +7, so it's -7. The y is still -9, as it was in the original. For point C, the x was +1, so it's going to become -1. And we changed it, but we kept the +6 in the y. And that's it. Number 11. Okay, this time we're going to, that's fun. Okay, so we're going to reflect this point, -2, 5 over the x-axis. So that becomes -2, 5 over the x-axis. You keep the x and you change the y. Okay, that was the first thing we did. Now the second thing, they want us to translate the result down 1. Down 1. My x value goes left and right. My y value goes down. Okay, so I'm going to keep this x as -2. Okay, it's not going to change. But this is going to go down 1. So think about it as well. If you are at -5, let's just say that's -5, and I have to go down 1, what's that number going to be? -6. And this is -4 and all the way up to 0. Well, what is -5 and -1? -6. So I got the same answer, so that's what I do. Going down 1, my new point will still be -2, but it'll be down 6. Okay. So keep it as -2. And instead of 5, it became -5, but now it's down 1, so it's -6. All right, one more. Didn't realize that they were doing a translation in there. I thought it was just 2 reflections. That's okay, though. Okay. So this one says translate -5, -4 to the right 2 units. Okay, I'm at -5, -4. Okay, if I'm going left or right, that's changing my x. If I'm going up or down, that's changing my y. This is my x, this is my y. I'm going right 2. So I'm going to add 2. But I'm also going to do this like here's the -5 on the x-axis. So if I'm going to go +2, I don't keep going this way, I go backwards 2. Where does that land? Well, that's -4 and that's -3. So -5 plus 2, also doing the math. I'm showing you 2 different ways to get your answer. You end up with -3, okay? And then I didn't do anything with the y. It stays the same. But now I'm going to reflect over the y-axis. So if I'm going to reflect over the y-axis, you keep your y and you change your negatives or positives with the x value. So that becomes +3. So my answer is 3 and -4. And that is the answer. Okay, so is that number 12? I guess there's, yeah. Okay, that was number 12, so we're done. Brother, didn't even know I finished. All right, so that's it for this lesson.